Some secrets are buried so deeply that even time struggles to uncover them. But the truth has a way of clawing its way back, no matter how tightly you try to hold it down. For years, I lived with a shadow from my first marriage, a betrayal so painful that it nearly destroyed the person I was. I thought I had hidden it forever until the day it all came crashing into the open. And when the truth surfaced, it didn't just expose my past, it shattered the life I thought I had built. I grew up believing that marriage was meant to be the foundation of trust, the shelter one runs to when storms of life crash down. My upbringing was simple, rooted in tradition, faith, and a relentless hope that love could bridge every gap. Yet, in the quiet corners of my youth, I began to notice how the world didn't always treat people the same way. The color of one's skin, the community one belonged to, the accent of one's voice, all these invisible markers determined opportunities, dignity, even safety. When I first married, I was young and foolishly optimistic. My husband seemed charming, ambitious, and endlessly persuasive. He promised me a life built on equality and dreams. But I was blind to the warning signs that trailed behind his smile. I overlooked the dismissive tone he carried when addressing my family. I excused the subtle comments he made when discussing my culture, brushing them off as jokes, even when they cut deeper than I admitted. We lived in a small town where whispers traveled faster than truth. People carried their prejudices like heirlooms, passing them from one generation to the next. As a woman of color married into a family that never truly accepted me, I quickly learned that silence was a form of survival. I dressed myself in patience, cloaking my pain behind practiced smiles, convincing myself that love would eventually silence the noise around us. But silence has a cost. Slowly, I began losing pieces of myself. My husband encouraged this disappearance, wrapping it in the language of respectability. He told me how to speak, how to dress, how to behave in front of his colleagues. My identity became something to be managed, hidden, erased. Every time I pushed back, he reminded me how lucky I was that he had chosen me, as if love was a favor I had to repay. The betrayal of my first marriage wasn't just the breaking of vows, it was the systematic stripping away of my dignity. Behind closed doors, he was not the man I married. He belittled my ambitions, mocked my heritage, and turned intimacy into a weapon. And yet, I stayed. I stayed because I thought endurance would earn me respect. I stayed because I was afraid of what leaving would mean in a society that already judged me for being different. I remember the first time I tried to tell a friend. We sat at a small cafe, and as I fumbled for words, her eyes darted around the room. "Are you sure you want to talk about this here?" she whispered. The fear of judgment silenced me again. I laughed, brushed it off, and carried the weight back home. That day I learned that betrayal isn't always dramatic. It can be quiet, stretched across years, hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. And then came the moment that broke me. I discovered he was unfaithful, not once but repeatedly, and always with women he believed fit into the image he wanted the world to see, women whose skin was lighter, whose roots aligned with his circle of privilege. His infidelity was more than physical, it was a declaration that I was never enough. I wanted to scream. I wanted the world to see the injustice, the cruelty. But when I confronted him, he turned it back on me. He painted me as unstable, as ungrateful, as someone who was inventing problems where none existed. His family stood by him, their cold stares confirming what I had always suspected. I was never truly welcome, never truly equal. It was then I realized my marriage was not a partnership, it was a cage. A gilded prison built on lies, betrayal, and the suffocating weight of prejudice. Leaving him was not the liberation I imagined. It was survival, yes, but survival comes with scars. When I walked away, I carried with me the whispers of his family, the judgment of the community, and the self-doubt that clung to me like a shadow. Every time I looked in the mirror, I wondered if the failure was mine. I moved to a new city, determined to rebuild, but the betrayal followed me. It crept into my new relationships, my work, even my silence. I questioned every compliment, every gesture of kindness, convinced it carried hidden motives. Trust became a foreign language I no longer knew how to speak. Yet, in that darkness, I began to rebuild piece by piece. I pursued education, found strength in my career, and surrounded myself with people who valued me for who I was, not for what they wanted me to erase. Slowly, I stitched myself back together. But one stitch remained loose, the secret of my first marriage. I never spoke of it. Not to friends. Not to family. Not even to the man who would later become my second husband. I told myself I was protecting them, but deep down, I knew I was protecting myself from judgment, from pity, from the fear that they would see me as broken. Years passed. My new life flourished. My second marriage was kinder, gentler, built on a foundation of respect I had once believed impossible. But secrets have sharp edges, and mine was waiting, buried yet restless. The truth surfaced on an ordinary day, disguised as nothing more than a casual conversation. I was at a community event, surrounded by people who knew me only as the woman I had become, not the woman I once was. And then, in a single moment, the past collided with the present. An acquaintance, unaware of the silence I had guarded for so long, spoke my former name aloud. They mentioned my first husband casually, as if recalling an old memory. The words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. In that instant, my carefully constructed world began to crack. My second husband's eyes shifted toward me, confusion clouding his face. Friends who had trusted my strength now looked at me with questions I had never prepared to answer. The secret I had buried was no longer mine to control. The betrayal I had hidden was exposed, and with it came the flood of memories I had fought to forget. I felt the weight of every cruel word, every moment of erasure, every injustice I had endured. For days afterward, I lived in silence. My second husband pressed gently, never unkind, but persistent. The truth demanded air, and so, with trembling hands, I finally opened the door to my past. I told him everything. The way my first husband had stripped me of dignity, the way his family had treated me as less than human, the way his betrayals had been not just of fidelity, but of humanity itself. I revealed the depth of pain I had carried, the injustice I had endured simply for being who I was. The climax was not a single explosion, it was a slow unraveling. Every truth I revealed was a piece of armor falling away, leaving me exposed, vulnerable, terrified. And yet, as I spoke, I realized something profound. The shame had never belonged to me. The betrayal was his. The injustice was theirs. The silence was forced upon me by a world that demanded I bear the weight of their prejudice. But the moment I spoke, the chains began to break. When the secret was finally exposed, I expected my life to crumble. Instead, something unexpected happened. I found freedom. The truth, once hidden in shadow, now lived in the open. And in that openness, I discovered the strength I never thought I had. My second husband did not see me as broken. He saw me as resilient. My friends did not see me as weak. They saw me as brave. For the first time, I realized that my story was not one of shame, it was one of survival. The betrayal of my first marriage no longer defined me. Instead, it became a reminder of how far I had come, of how much I had endured, and of the strength that lay within me. Yet, even as I found healing, I could not ignore the larger truth. Betrayal is never just personal. It is woven into the fabric of a society that allows injustice to flourish. My pain was not isolated, it was connected to generations of women, of people of color, of those who have been silenced, erased, and told to endure. By telling my story, I realized I was not just freeing myself, I was breaking the silence for others who still live in the shadows of betrayal and injustice. And so I ask you, listening to my story now, how many secrets are still buried, waiting to surface? How many lives are still caged by silence, by fear, by betrayal wrapped in the disguise of love? If my past has taught me anything, it is this: the truth may be painful, but silence is far more dangerous. When betrayal finds you, it seeks to erase you. But when you speak, when you refuse to hide, you reclaim your power. My dark secret about my first marriage was finally exposed, but in that exposure, I found light. And perhaps, in sharing it, I can remind you that no betrayal, no injustice, has the final word.